guys. So, for those of you who saw my last blog, you may remember, well, you may recognize this boot. This is my favorite cowboy boot. These are my boulets. And those of you who watched my vlog also will remember that I said I was going to be demonstrating how to clean and oil these boots in a sort of leather care 101 video later on. So that's what we're here to do today. The thing about leather is that it is one of the most weather-resistant and versatile materials you can make clothing out of. I will say that without a doubt. However, it is also a very high maintenance material. It requires, I would say, seasonal upkeep in order to make it last, especially given the cost of most leather items today is kind of expensive to buy clothing made out of this material. But with the proper care, I can say it's definitely well worth the money. But you got to take care of them. One of the more common things I see is people's boots will last them for a little while, but if you don't oil them or take care of them, what will happen is your leather will dry out and it will start to crack. And once it starts to crack, it's no longer watertight and you start getting puddles in your boots and they're not as cool anymore. So, the first thing you gotta do when you're gonna clean and oil is you gotta find yourself a workspace. I have myself set at the kitchen table here. And because you're working with oil, wherever you are, you're gonna want to put down something that will help protect the surface you're working at. Even if it's a surface you don't care much for, you might want to put something like cardboard or newspaper. I have stuff in cardboard, but you just might want to put something down, or like paper towel, because even if it's a workbench, that workbench could be dirty and you might not be able to get clean enough, so it might be easier to just put something clean down on top of it, because we're working with leather and oil and we don't want to be getting dirt particles and whatever's on the bench mixed in and messed up with oil, which then goes on the boot. We don't want to do that. So you want a clean working surface. That's the first thing you need. And then of course you need your materials. For cleaning the boot, most leather is fairly easy to clean. You just need some nice warm water with some soap and a rag. Make it a rag you don't care much for obvious reasons. That's all you need to clean the boots. It's that easy. Then you'll need your oils. Now, what leather conditioner product you choose to use is completely up to you, as well as up to the manufacturer of the leather product you're maintaining. You'll want to look into that. Because different manufacturers, different leather producers will call for different leather conditioners to use on their products. And there might be very specific reasons for that. So I have two here that I want to show you guys. These are the two, well, this is the one I'm going to be using today, and this is the one I would normally use. This one is new. But I would normally use, for boots, mink oil. Now this is just a solid state jelly type of oil. You can buy it at Walmart for like 12 bucks. It's cheap and it's a pretty universal leather conditioner. You could use mink oil on any number of leather items. Again, unless it says specifically not to, you could probably assume it's safe to use mink oil. But do check that. This, hang on just a second. I'm just gonna quickly correct the camera here. This, which is what we're going to be using today, is boot oil that I received as a sort of complimentary freebie from Red Wing. I purchased a new pair of boots recently, and they gave me some of this boot oil. I've never used a liquid boot oil like this before, and so I'm very excited to try this. The directions on them are pretty simple. It says be sure leather is clean and dry. Apply the boot oil with a dauber brush, cloth, or fingers and work into the leather to apply an even amount. What you choose to apply the oil and rub it in is up to you. Some people might want to have two rags, one to clean and then the other two for just oiling. I don't mind using my hands to work the oil into the leather. Some might not like that texture, so to each their own. Just be aware of that. And then after the boot oil is applied, we want to make sure it's worked in, and with boot oil, unless you're like soaking your boot, there's not really a amount that would be too much. If you can, you want there to be a film on it when you're done. And if you can, you want to leave as much time in between each step as you do this as you can, because that will make for a better leather cure. After you clean it, if you can let it dry completely, do so. In interest of time, I won't be doing that in this video. And the same goes for after you oil it and you leave a nice film of oil on it. If you can leave it overnight and let that oil just soak in and then wipe away the excess the next day, it will make for a better finish. Again, I will not have time to do that, but if you can, do it. It will work. It will work better for you, and it will be more satisfying to see the results at the end. So, without further ado, we're just going to start by taking our cloth here, get some soap in it, and then wring it out. We don't want it to be too soaking wet. You don't need to soak the leather here. Another nice thing about leather is it cleans fairly easy, especially, you know, well-treated leather isn't ridiculously porous and won't cling to dirt as bad as like a stained cotton shirt could. You know, you couldn't just wipe a stain or wipe food off of your cotton sweater with a cloth like you could wipe something off of your leather jacket with a cloth, or your leather couch even. There's just a lot of appeals to leather that people like. Being relatively easy to clean is one of them. And while it may not be leather, it pays to clean and take good care of the bottom. On mine, it's definitely not leather. It's rubber or composite with some grip. Although, on some cowboy boots, you can get the traditional flat leather option. Actually, those boots are the ones that actual riders probably wear, because those ones allow for the least amount of resistance when you need your feet to slide out of the saddle on the horse. But I don't know a whole lot about that, so I'll just stick to what I do know about, which is leather work. But so on those boots, you might want to actually oil and treat the bottom of them as well, to ensure that they don't dry out and crack on you. And while you're cleaning it, do make note of rough spots on the boot. Everyone is going to have rough spots where there's greater amounts of wear down in the leather than in other spots of the boot. That's usually going to depend on your gait and the profile of how you walk and how you step. Or perhaps the shape of your foot, just how the leather pushes out. Some people will have more wear in this area here, where your foot is the widest. Some might have it at the heel. On the other boot here, which I have, there's some more significant heel wear, but it's actually, I just finished oiling it, so it's just sitting, so I can't really show you right now. But anyways, this is about as clean as I'm probably gonna get it. Yeah, it's probably about as clean as I'm gonna get it. So I can just put my rag aside, put the boot down, and now I can begin oiling it. Careful with these kind of bottles, this style of bottle. The oil might come out fast. I'm just putting a little bit on at a time because I've never worked with it before, and since it's not a solid state jelly, it actually spreads and works itself into the leather a lot easier. Now, this boot oil does have a warning claiming it might darken the leather that you're applying it to. I don't know if that's because it contains a dye or if it's just engineered that way to maintain that really nice red that you see on the Red Wing boots. That really nice, almost burgundy color. I don't know if there's some dye or something in it that helps it to do that, but I don't mind a darker shade on the boots, so that doesn't bother me. But you might want to keep an eye out for that if you're doing this at your own home, in case you're working on perhaps a dyed piece of leather. because if you have a dyed piece of leather, you definitely want to be careful what sort of oils you introduce, because that could possibly affect the shade and tone of the dye on that leather. I don't know how likely that is. It would depend on the craftsmanship of the leather as well as the dye and how well it was applied. But I'm sure it's happened. Actually, I know it's happened. I've seen it. It was on an old jacket, an old leather jacket that had dyed sleeves, and the leather was old and aging, and when the craftsperson tried to oil it, some dye unfortunately came out and leached onto the rest of the leather. It was unfortunate. So yeah, you just want to be thorough with this. Work it in. Truly, this is something you could spend an hour doing, but if you want to be really thorough. But for how many years you can get out of your boots if you do this semi-regularly, it's well worth the effort, because this can literally add years of life. And it's not even that frequent of a practice. You could do this at the end of each season. Say you don't wear your boots in the winter. I don't wear these that often in the winter. It's too slippery. So before you put them away, do this. If you really want to be thorough, before you put them away, do this. When you take them out, clean them up, get the dust from the closet off them, do it again. And really, that's all. If you do it once every season, summer, spring, fall, whatever, this boot will last you a lot longer. You know, it's an hour of time every 4 months, 5 months. It's not too much. Now, that's if you have just one pair of boots. I have many things that require frequent conditioning, so it's a bit more effort. But I still would say it's worth it because of what I get from it. High quality weather resistant clothing that doesn't shrink or isn't affected by the wash because you don't put it in a washing machine. It doesn't wear out. Can provide adequate protection in some work industries. There's a reason that so many welders choose to use leather welding smocks. There's good reason that blacksmiths and many other trades that work with heat and metal particularly are wearing leather. It's because it is spark and flame resistant as well. Unlike certain polyesters, if you happen to catch a bunch of welding sparks to your leather smock, it's not going to light up and just burst into flames unless it was saturated with oily contaminants, which does make me wonder. Now I think about it, perhaps it might be wise not to oil that kind of leather equipment, just given the environment you'd be working in a welding environment. But that still does speak to the versatility and strength of leather, given that it's used in a fairly rough trade like that. Yes, well, I'll keep working it in until eventually it's all the same or a similar shade, that's a good indicator that you've gotten oil everywhere. You know, if you still have light patches and stuff from before you put any oil on it, you've obviously missed some spots. And as you oil and work it in, there are going to be small folds in the leather that actually come out, and it's going to reveal spots that you did miss because it was folded over. That's all just the process of working it, you know. You got to knead it a fair bit to really get it in there. But I think for today, that looks alright. So you can see it did darken the shade. Now, this will likely absorb in, and it will go back to its previous shade, or closer to that shade, within a day or so. So, what you would do now is that you would get this nice and coated as I have it, and you would then put a small film. If there isn't a film left over, just a film of oil. You see that glisten? Just a small one. Don't need to glob it on there, but if you can get a little glisten on there, awesome. You put the boot aside, and you let it sit. The longer you can let it sit, the better. In a clean spot, granted, you want to leave it in a clean spot because that oil is just going to attract dirt. So if you put it back in your boot room or somewhere, it's going to get dirt on it. You don't want that. So, clean spot, let the oil absorb into it, and then, after you've left it as long as you can bear to, you grab some paper towel or a rag. Again, in the interest of time, I'm just going to do this now. And you go and you wipe that film away. You wipe away your excess oil. And that is how you oil or condition your leather boots. I suppose I should clarify that not all leather conditioners are oil-based or oil-predominant. There are some that are used now that aren't. And again, you'll want to double check with manufacturers to ensure that you are using the correct one for your application. Well, it's been a pleasure showing you guys some Leather Care Basics 101. I hope you guys found this information interesting and useful. And if there's anyone else in the comments or anyone of my viewers who has leather products and do it a different way, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Please comment if you do it different. Just tell me, how do you go about doing it? If there's some differences in how you do it and how I do it. I'd love to hear your input. And until next time, bye.